वेलकम बैक टू माय यूट्यूब चैनल। तो आज हम BLI 223 के इम्पोर्टेंट क्वेश्चन आंसर्स डिस्कस करेंगे। तो ये क्वेश्चन पेपर मतलब जो इम्पोर्टेंट क्वेश्चंस हैं ये मैंने आपको पहले प्रीवियस वीडियोस में डाल रखा है, आप देख सकते हो। तो ये मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंट क्वेश्चंस हैं जो आप बिल्कुल भी स्किप मत करना अपने एग्ज़ाम में। और आज हम डिस्कस करेंगे 2 to 3 के मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चंस के सॉल्व्ड आंसर। तो चलिए स्टार्ट करते हैं। क्वेश्चन नंबर 1 है, व्हाट इज़ लाइब्रेरी क्लासिफिकेशन? व्हाट आर द यूजेस ऑफ क्लासिफिकेशन इन लाइब्रेरी? Library classification, arrangement of book and other reading material of a library in a way useful to the user. It is knowledge classification are applied to book and other packages of information. Thus, library classification is knowledge classification as applied in libraries. In other words, library classification is applied knowledge classification, but library classification is lot more than knowledge classification, as it has to take into the account the physical aspect of the document, the way knowledge has been formatted and presented in them, as well as the viewpoint of the author. Uses of classification in a library, it brings together book on the same subject. Thus a user get all the book at one place, which is much more convenient to the user. It facilitates the browsing function of a library. It is only possible fruitfully in a library organized by subjects. It is quite helpful for the self-learner. The systematic arrangement of book in open access library is helpful in self-learning. Third, it is location tool. Without it, the library catalog will not be able to function properly. It is also used for preparing self-list. Fourth, classification is the basic of all information retrieval system and method, both in manual and electronic systems. Fifth, it helps to replace the book at their correct places when the book are returned to the stack after the home use or use within the library. It has claimed that a library classification has three functions, namely cognitive, information retrieval, and self-arrangement. Many bibliographies, catalog, etc. are classified for better use. UDC was created to arrange entry in a universal bibliography. 8. It has been found useful in reference service for fact and analysis of user question. In reference interview, it is useful for arrangement of circulation record. 9. It helps in building a balanced collection of document in a library. So this is question number 1. Now the question number 2 is, what is classification? Explain its scope, method and uses. Classification is a process of making classes. A class is a set or group of entity having at least one commonality. This similarity is called characteristic and is the basis of grouping or subgrouping of entity. For example, all the students of belief class, whether male or female, of any religion and caste, coming from different state or regions. Uses of classification. Classification is a mental act and logical process of association and relation. It goes on every moment of life, knowingly or unknowingly, deliberately or unconsciousness, Any system, be it biological, social, or mechanical, has to classify for successful functioning. A postman classifies postal item for efficient and timely delivery. A fruit seller sort his fruit into categories. Record file in office are arranged in some order, and within each file letter and memos are arranged in some known order. Without such an arrangement, the previous record cannot be located and used. Book and other reading material in library are arranged, no doubt to increase their usability. Scope of classification: there is no act of life where classification is not used. It is applied everywhere. It is basic purpose to learn. Opposite of classification is disorder and choice. Classification can be done of all object, entity, action, thought, and concept. We can classify people, country, natural phenomena, plant, flower, and library, philosophy, literature, artificial automobile, what not. It is an universal constant. Method of classification: classification according to attribute, classification according to variable. Classification according to attribute. An attribute is a qualitative characteristic which cannot be expressed numerically. Example: intelligence, religion, caste, sex, etc. Classification according to variable. Variable refer to quantitative characteristic of data and can be expressed numerically. Example: wages, age, height, weight, marks, and distance, etc. So this is question number 2. Third is describe the different category of library classification by design methodology. By design methodology, first is enumerative system. A classification is a map of knowledge which lists every subject and its subdivision in a top-down approach. Each subdivision is given a notational mark to denote it, known as a class number. This notation or a cluster of digits is assigned to a document having the topic as its specific subject. These are also known as mark and park systems. Enumerative classification are predefined and frozen list of subject of the past, present, and of near future. Second, facet system. An enumerative system produces systematic but linear list of subject. Knowledge is multidimensional and growing dynamically. An enumerated classification can represent only one aspect of the specific subject at a time. Many aspects have to be left out. This facet system was later refined and developed into a very dynamic and effective model based on postulate and principle for which Ranganathan developed a theory in famous book Prolegomena to library classification. Third is synthesis graphed on the enumerated base. It is a mix of two systems. The basically enumerated system have later developed some special table of documentary aspect to be combined with the base number. Now the question number 4 is describe the different category of library classification by area of application. By area of application, special classification first. A classification for specific area of knowledge, for example, economics, even banking, occupational safety, diamond technology, women study, Indology, etc. are example of special classification. Some example of special classification are UniClass, unified classification for the construction industry. Special classification inventory are depth classification used for classifying and indexing microliterature in the form of journal article, research report, thesis, etc. Second, user interest classification. The ultimate function of a lending library is to serve its user to their satisfaction. A classification is a tool to manage a library. By definition, it is an arrangement of information material in a way useful to the majority of the user. In other words, it is a rational sequence of maximum utility. Convenience of library user is a weighty consideration, if not the overriding one in a classification. Third is general classification. A classification of the entire universe of knowledge is known as general classification. These are also known as universal classification, Dewey Decimal Classification, Universal Decimal Classification, Collin Classification, and Library of Congress Classification are some examples. Question number 4. Question 5 is write short note on user interest classification. The ultimate function of a lending library is to serve its users to their satisfaction. A classification is a tool to manage a library. By definition, it is an arrangement of information material in a way useful to the majority of the user. In other words, it is a rational sequence of maximum utility. Convenience of library users is a weighty consideration, if not the overriding one in the classification. It is always advised to put a look at the most useful place. Practically, utility must govern all arrangement. Feel many library and classifier. The aim is to group library material the way which coincide with the user thinking, interest, activity, and need. It is not a cognitive classification of field of knowledge, but a contrived arrangement to serve local needs. So this is question number 5. Now the question number 6 is what is idea plane, and explain their canons also. Idea plane is a plane of foremost importance where core intellectual work is done. Mostly the work here pertain to the choice of the model defining the subject, its scope and sources of term and concept. Core classificatory work is the choice of characteristic and order of the classification to produce category of concept called facets and isolates. Ranganathan has given 5 set of canon for the work in the idea plane. Canon of characteristic, canon for succession of characteristic, canon for formation of array of classes, canon for formulation of chain of classes, canon for filtratory sequence. First is canon of characteristics. The terms are collected on a small slip from the identified standard source of the subject. This mass of term is broken into smaller group called facet of the subject by choosing suitable characteristic. 3 canon of characteristic are canon of differentiation, canon of ascertainability, canon of permanence. Canon for succession of characteristics. There may be many relevant and permanent characteristics for dividing a group. All may be needed to divide and subdivide a group, but the order in which they are applied one after the other is very important for the kind, quality, and ultimate value of classification. Therefore, this set of canon is concerned with the sequence in which the various characteristics are applied. There are canon of concomitance, canon of relevant succession, canon of consistent succession. Third, canon for formation of array of classes. An array is a long line of entity of equal rank arranged in some systematic order. For example, all children of father make an array. In the same vein, all the continent of earth make an array. Canon for their formation, canon of exhaustiveness, canon of exclusiveness, canon on helpful sequence, canon of consistent sequency. Fourth is canon for formulation of chain of classes. As a result of successive application of characteristic to a group, not all member will be of equal rank. This could be whole, their part, kind, and various species and subspecies of an entity. Such whole and their parts should be kept together to form a chain of classes. For example, grandfather, father, son, grandchildren make a chain. There are two canons for arranging entity in a chain: canon of decreasing extension, canon of modulation. So this is question number 6 is what is idea plane? Explain their canon also. सो फ्रेंड, दिस इज़ क्वेश्चन नंबर 10। ये हमारा लास्ट क्वेश्चन है। इसके बाद जो भी क्वेश्चन रिमेनिंग है वो हम नेक्स्ट वीडियो में डिस्कस करेंगे। अगर आपको मेरी वीडियो अच्छी लग रही है तो प्लीज़ डू लाइक, शेयर एंड सब्सक्राइब। शेयर ज़रूर करें और सब्सक्राइब भी ज़रूर करें। मेरी वीडियोस में देख रही हूँ कि 70% लोग ऐसे हैं जो वीडियो देख रहे हैं लेकिन सब्सक्राइब नहीं कर रहे हैं। तो फ्रेंड, आप लोग का कुछ नहीं जाएगा, प्लीज़ सब्सक्राइब कर दीजिए। आप वीडियो देख रहे हैं तो एक सब्सक्राइब ही करना है आपको, तो प्लीज़ सब्सक्राइब करें मेरी वीडियो को, ताकि आपको और भी अच्छे अच्छे वीडियोस मिल सकें और आपके एग्ज़ाम अच्छे से हो जाएं।